Steve Harvey. You won't believe this. One of the funniest men on earth, the guy who turned laughter into a global empire, once spent 3 years sleeping in the back seat of a broken-down car. That man is Steve Harvey. His journey from poverty, ridicule, and heartbreak to becoming one of the most recognizable voices in entertainment is not just inspiring, it's brutal, raw, and unforgettable. And trust me, once you hear what he's been through, you'll never look at him the same way again. Now, let's rewind the story. Before the suits, the mansions, and the TV cameras, there was a little boy in West Virginia named Steve Harvey. Born in 1957, the youngest of 5 kids, his childhood was shaped not by privilege, but by hardship. His father, Jesse, worked in the coal mines until his lungs gave out, and his mother, Eloise, stretched pennies until they tore in half. Poverty wasn't an inconvenience, it was their daily reality. Holes in his shoes, food running thin, winters colder than the walls could handle. And as if poverty wasn't enough, Steve had a stutter that turned every classroom into a battlefield. Kids laughed, teachers sighed, and every word that stuck in his throat felt like another failure. One day, when the teacher asked students to write down their dreams, Steve Harvey scribbled, "I want to be on television." The class erupted in laughter. The teacher tore his paper in half, calling him arrogant, even phoning his parents to complain. Imagine that a child's dream ripped to shreds in front of his classmates. But his father refused to let that dream die. He told him, "Write it down again. Put it on your wall. Read it every morning and night. Make it your promise." And that's exactly what young Steve did. Years later, when he finally made it onto TV, he mailed that same teacher a brand new television every Christmas. A silent reminder. The boy she mocked was now in every living room in America. But the road to that moment was long and cruel. After high school, Steve Harvey bounced from one job to another. Mailman, carpet cleaner, insurance salesman, mechanic, even boxer. Nothing stuck. Nothing filled the hole inside him. Then, one night in 1985, at an open mic comedy show in Cleveland, he stepped on stage. His first joke hit, then another, and suddenly the room was filled with laughter, real laughter, the kind that lifts your soul. The host handed him $50, and walking out into the cold night, tears streaming down his face, Steve whispered, "I was born tonight." That was the beginning. The very next day, he quit his job. But dreams don't come cheap. For the next 3 years, Steve Harvey lived inside his car. His 1976 Ford became his bedroom, kitchen, and bathroom. He washed in gas station sinks, ate cheap sandwiches when he could afford them, and often went to bed hungry. Some nights he sat in that car, fog on the windshield, praying no one would notice him sleeping inside. It nearly broke him. But just as he was about to quit, 2 phone messages changed everything. One gig offered $150. Another offered the same for the very next night. That was $300 enough to get him to New York, where showtime at the Apollo was waiting. That moment saved him. From then on, nothing could stop the rise of Steve Harvey. The Apollo stage gave him a platform. Then came his own sitcom, tours, and eventually the legendary Kings of Comedy tour alongside Cedric the Entertainer, D.L. Hughley, and Bernie Mac. Entire arenas shouted his name. Spike Lee turned it into a movie, cementing his place in history. For a man who once had nothing, this was redemption. But even in the spotlight, scars remained. Behind the laughter, Steve Harvey's personal life was unraveling. His first marriage, to Marcia, fell apart under the weight of poverty and absence. His second marriage, to Mary, ended in bitter accusations and public scandal. Custody battles, headlines, and broken promises left him scarred, humiliated, and financially crushed. At one point, his bank account held just $700. And then came the worst discovery of all: his taxes hadn't been filed for 7 years. With penalties and interest, he owed the IRS millions. For the first time since those nights in the car, Steve feared total ruin. So, what did he do? He fought back the only way he knew how, through hard work. He woke up before dawn, hosting radio shows, writing books, touring, performing, grinding non-stop. Every dollar went to paying back the IRS. He worked himself to the bone, but slowly he dug his way out. And then came Family Feud. When Steve Harvey took over hosting in 2010, the show exploded in popularity, becoming one of the most watched programs in the country. His charisma, his humor, his ability to make even awkward moments hilarious. It saved the franchise and gave him stability again. But even then, storms weren't over. In 2015, on live television during the Miss Universe pageant, Steve Harvey made one of the most infamous mistakes in broadcasting history. He read the wrong name. The wrong queen was crowned. Cameras captured the panic, the gasps, the confusion. It was humiliating, and the world mocked him for it. Memes flooded the internet. Headlines said his career was finished. But instead of hiding, he did the unthinkable. He went back the next year and hosted again. Broken, embarrassed, but unafraid. That's resilience. That's Steve Harvey. Through all the failures, divorces, debts, scandals, and humiliations, one thing finally gave him peace: love. In 2007, he married Marjorie, the woman he calls the best thing that ever happened to him. With her, he built a blended family of 7 children. He gave her kids his last name. And years later, when her son Jason said on live television, "You gave me your last name. There's no one better than you, Dad," Steve Harvey broke down in tears. That moment wasn't about fame. It was redemption. Now, nearing 70, Steve Harvey is not just a comedian, not just a TV host. He's an empire. Television, radio, books, businesses, even international versions of Family Feud. He lives in a 17-acre estate in Atlanta, dresses like a fashion icon, drives cars that look like art pieces. But he never forgets the number that once haunted him: $1,700. Because no matter how far he's come, he knows it can all be gone in a flash. And maybe that's why his story hits so hard. It's not about the money or the fame. It's about grit. About falling flat on your face in front of millions and getting back up anyway. About losing families, fortunes, and dignity, and still finding the strength to fight again. So, let me ask you this. Has there ever been a time when life knocked you so low, you thought you'd never rise again? If Steve Harvey's story proves anything, it's this: no scar is final, no failure is permanent, and no dream is too big if you refuse to quit. If this story inspired you, hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more journeys of resilience, redemption, and legends who refuse to stay down.